Holiness Acting Pope Lê Văn Trung and Her Eminence Cardinal Hung Tan will be often present in front of the great divine temple in order to welcome and guide human beings into the path of true religion, especially to guide the children of God who come to pray and worship the Supreme Being. The middle part of the facade, the area between the two towers, on the top is crowned with a representation of Maitreya Buddha, sitting on a yellow tiger. One day, this Buddha, by the orders of God, will chair the Great Meeting or Dragon Flower Assembly. At this meeting, all beings at all levels will be gathered. Those souls who are to become perfect beings will be tested. The top floor of the middle is the eye, which is the divine eye or God's eye. The Supreme Being is acknowledged throughout the building by the symbol of the divine eye. This divine eye dominates the central part of the facade. Part of its potency as a symbol lies in the fact that it represents both the omniscience of the divine, in that it sees all, and the protectiveness of the divine. The flag, which usually flies from the flagpole positioned over the second balcony, consists of 3 colors. Yellow represents the Buddhist, blue the Taoist, and red the Confucian. The flag also carries the name of the religion in Chinese and the divine eye as well as the insignia of the religion. On the facade, directly under the 3 ancient attributes, is the official name of the faith, carved with 6 characters in Vietnamese and Chinese, Great Way of the Third Amnesty. Either side of the name of the religion are 2 highly decorated Chinese characters. On your right side is the character of Ren, love. We must spread human-heartedness everywhere. This human-heartedness will be used the great way to make the country stable and prosperous. The character on the left-hand side is Yi, or righteousness. The Third Amnesty regards righteousness with great importance. It is needed to build and develop the nation. The 2 characters, love and righteousness, represents the purpose of the Gaudai religion.
The carvings on the edge of the balcony illustrate 8 categories of employment. Each one represents a particular story in the folklore of the Sino-Vietnamese world. They are pictures of predecessors who had offered the great contribution to humanity. But brought together, they represent 8 noble professions. The first carving is Ha Võ, represents agriculture. The second carving is Ngu Thuẫn, represents farming. The third carving is Tội Nhân Hữu Xào, represents manufacturing. The fourth carving is Phạm Lãi Tây Thi, represents commerce. The fifth carving is Khương Thượng, represents fishing. The sixth carving is Bá Nha Tử Kỳ, represents forestry. The seventh carving is Sao Phu Hứa Do, represents shepherding, livestock raising. The eighth carving is Châu Mãi Thần, represents scholarship and teaching education. There are 4 columns that support the balcony. 2 of these columns are decorated with dragons, the other with lotus flowers. The word for dragon in Vietnamese is long. The word for flower is hoa. And these 2 words together, long, hoa, are the title for the great religious meeting. Dragon Flower Assembly, which can be similar to the Western concept of Judgment Day. In this way, the facade reminds adepts of their spiritual responsibilities in the face of the coming Judgment Day. You will notice the carvings of two mythical Hindu princes on either side of the four columns. On your right-hand side is Devang, the personification of good, a generous and tranquil figure. Opposite him on the left side is Devu, his brother, and the personification of evil, a wild and power-hungry man who is evil incarnated. Their father was a great Indian king who was preparing to resign his throne in order to seek enlightenment. Before he left, he was worried that Devu would cause trouble for his elder brother. The king contrived to send Devu away before conferring the throne on his gentleman son Devang. On his return, Devu incensed to find that he had been robbed of power and demanded that his demure brother abdicate the throne, stating that such a gentleman could not govern properly. As a respectful son, Devang sought out his father to ask his advice. By this time, the old king had retreated to the forest and had attained enlightenment. He shared the secret of karmic escape with his good son, who then joined him. Devu, having achieved all his earthly ambitions, became despondent and ruled badly. Eventually, he went in search of his father and brother. They offered him the chance for enlightenment, and by following their lead, Devu also became enlightened. There are many lessons to be learned from this famous story. It suggests that whether one is good or bad, so long as one sets one's heart and mind on the way, then all have the chance for enlightenment. Another moral of this tale, one that Chaldeans stressed in their teachings, is that worldly cares such as prestige and status, even the majesty of kingship, pales into insignificance when enlightenment becomes available.
Now that we have explained some significant features in the front and outside of the temple, we would like you to continue your tour inside the temple, starting from the main entrance. There are 5 steps in front of the temple. These represent the 5 levels of cultivation and attainment. Step 1. The way of humanity. This represents basic human way of establishing good relations on earth. Step 2 refers to the way of the genies. This is the teaching and ethics derived from Greek, Egyptian, and Chinese mythologies. Step 3 is the level of the saints, which is the way of the Western monotheistic traditions. Step 4 is the way of the immortals. This is related to the quest of Taoist immortality. Step 5 represents the way of the Buddha. Inside the main entrance, you will notice a hand holding a spiritual scale of justice over the globe of the earth. This is the hand of God the Father, holding the scales to judge the merits and the failings of each human being, and this judgment will determine rewards and punishments in the afterlife. The scrolls on either side of the mural are 2 lined poems, which is distinguished by the first 2 characters, which read Heb and Ting, the name of this part of the building. This roughly translates as follows. In union with Gaudai religion, all of humanity will be able to return to the perfect state of existence. The Supreme Being opened the Great Way. The divine beings of the 5 religious branches and the 3 religious traditions will attend the Dragon Flower Assembly. As you pass inside, you will come upon the place of spiritual calmness. This area is designed as a place to inspire tranquility and introspection. It is here that the hierarchy and adepts mentally prepare themselves before passing into the main temple. This is where worshippers collect themselves before the ceremony. The main feature of the Palace of Spiritual Calmness is the mural in front of you with the picture of the three saints declare the treaty between God and humanity. The three figures it depicts are saints through their spiritism, connection with Taoism. The three saints are: in classical Chinese dress, one of the most famous of Vietnam's poet-prophets, Trang Trinh Nguyen Binh Kim, a highly respected Vietnamese poet and prophet of the 16th century. He writes in Chinese characters the agreement between God and humanity. In Western dress, the great French writer and mystic, Victor Hugo. He acts in the spiritual realm as the foreign missionary of Cao religion. And in modern Chinese dress, Sun Yat-sen, the founder of the First Chinese Republic. He holds an ink slab representative of Chinese culture. Together, they are writing the agreement between God and humanity for love and justice. These words appear in French. Douai humanité, amour à justice. This is, in effect, the contract of the Third Amnesty. This is, in essence, the Third Alliance, goals that each of us are expected to live up to. Holding to this agreement will lead to redemption. These saints you see before you provide spiritual guidance to the faith and help Taoists spread the message of the Third Alliance between God and humanity.
On the right and left-hand sides of the place of spiritual calmness, there are stairs that lead to the upper levels of Heavenly Union Palace. From this level, you will have a stunning view of the main body of the temple. The balconies that extend from this level of the Heavenly Union Palace out into the temple are used for worship during the large ceremonies when the floor area is full. Turning back to this upper area of the Heavenly Union Palace, you will notice that it contains an altar which is dedicated to those members of the Heavenly Union Palace hierarchy who have disincarnated. They are Hộ Pháp, Head of Legislative Affairs, Thượng Phẩm, Leader of the Spiritual Realm, Thượng Sanh, Leader of the Temporal Realm, and the 12 Lords of the Zodiac. The low round table in front of this altar is where the musician sits and plays. Music is central to almost all Taoist ritual and worship. The top floor of Heavenly Union Palace is the Non-Thinking Palace. In the Non-Thinking Palace, you will notice that there is a small God's altar. This floor is a place where dignitaries of the Heavenly Union Palace act as mediums between the Pope and the spiritual realm. Return to the ground floor. You will notice that the main body of the temple is connected to the place of spiritual calmness by means of two arched portals. The left entrance is reserved for female adepts, the right for the men. When you enter the temple space, Look behind you and you will see 3 statues standing upon lotus flowers pedestal. The statue in the middle represents His Holiness Hộ Pháp Phạm Công Tắc. The Hộ Pháp is the one who unveils the mystery of the invisible and is the maintainer of the rules and laws of the new religion. He is actively involved in assuring that the religious rule and laws which have become divine laws are carried out in detail. In order to keep the dignitaries and the adepts free of suffering inflicted by the lords of karma. To the Hộ Pháp right, that is the spectator's left, is the statue of His Holiness Thượng Phẩm Cao Huỳnh Cư. Thượng Phẩm is the representative of the Hộ Pháp in the formation of virtual souls of the sacerdotal council. He acts as the leader of the spiritual realm and aids in direct souls in the process of spiritual and heavenly evolution. On the Hộ Pháp left, that is to the spectator's right, is the statue of His Holiness Thượng Sanh Cao Hoài Sang. He is representation of temporal realm to Hộ Pháp. Thượng Sanh acts as leader of the temporal realm and he has control of all the laws and rules which relate to the worldly life of all adepts to guide them out of the abyss of suffering.
Behind the Hộ Pháp statue is the gold, mysterious Chinese character carved on the red wall. This character, Qi, fundamentally, it means mist or essence. It can also mean breath and the sustaining breath of the cosmos, which makes it a central key to meditation. Qi is also food for the immortals. It is the essence underlying and supporting all life. Standing in front of the character Qi, the Hộ Pháp is able to watch over every ceremony and gather spiritual forces that flow through the temple. So from this position, Hộ Pháp controls and directs the force of Qi during worship. Between these 3 representations run a great, long, dark brown serpent. The tail is coiled around the base of the Thượng Sanh, and the body continues to wind about the base of the Thượng Phẩm. This great cobra has 7 heads. At the feet of the Hộ Pháp, there are 4 heads, and rising behind him another 3. These heads represent the 7 human passions. The 2 lowest heads embody anger and distress, above these, hatred and the evil desires. The 3 heads that rise behind Holiness Hộ Pháp represent joy, love, and the pleasure. Behind the statue of the Thượng Phẩm hangs his banner. It has embroidery of characters Thượng Phẩm in Chinese. Behind the statue of the Thượng Sanh hangs his banner. It has embroidery of characters Thượng Sanh in Chinese. On the pillars behind the Qi emblem are scrolled Chinese characters, which roughly translated means, a Buddha's teachings always depend on the times and circumstances in order to save human beings and help them practice the way. The gateway of the Tao and its power will usher in the period of the destruction of evil in order to protect the true way.
Just beyond the 5-tiered pedestal is the area where the lower hierarchy of the Heavenly Union Palace worship. But already we have moved into the body of the Great Divine Temple, which is known as the Palace of 9 Degrees of the Evolution. The Palace of 9 Degrees of the Evolution is not only the main part of the temple, but also represents the administrative and executive branch of the Taoist hierarchy and its 9 levels of organization. However, this 9-step building represents the 9 levels of evolution the disembodied soul must pass through before it can begin its journey to perfection. Inside the great divine temple, there are 28 columns decorated with green and yellow dragons. The 28 columns